Welcome to CodePen Houston. Thank you to L Creative and CodePen for making this possible, and thank you all for joining us here and online. I'm Stephen Shaw, the Director of Development at L Creative, and you can find me on Twitter at Shashaw, and you can find me each week co-hosting Keyframers, a collaborative coding live stream, where we build awesome animations, mostly using the CodePen collab mode. It's been really fun, and we've made a lot of really exciting things, so you should definitely check that out. Tonight, I will be giving a talk on uncomfortable development. This is an exploration of ideas and techniques behind making sites that delight. Because, let's face it, websites can be boring. They don't have to be boring, but boring is easy. It's comfortable. You don't have to push any boundaries to be boring. Your clients won't usually ask for boring, but by the time it's sifted through 8 different committees, you end up with boring. Boring just happens unless we work against it. So how do we fight boring? Well, we can dig into a microsite I recently built and learn a few lessons here. This microsite is called Get Uncomfortable. You can find that at uncomfortable.lcreative.com. It's a campaign where we did to kind of encourage our clients to break out of their comfort zone and to trust us a little bit. A few quick stats on the site. It's a static site built with the Vue CLI. There's a combination of CSS animations, GreenSock, and Vue transition elements going on here. But a lot of interactions happening throughout, with no section exactly the same. And that is just a glitch within this system. And then these little tentacles here are done with Pixie.js. So again, this was to show our clients a little bit about how the web can be used and how we can make stuff that isn't boring. So what's the first way we can accomplish that? First, don't take the easy route. Copying and pasting from a Word document that you got from the client into the built-in template, it's lazy. You don't want your site to look like a privacy policy. You want it to be engaging. You want people to actually want to read through the content. Take time with each element, with each piece of content in the page, and consider its purpose. Think through how you can use color, layout, or animation to reinforce the purpose of the element and carry that central message through. For example, in the first section of the microsite, we had some important text that we wanted to bring out and make sure was emphasized. So this is just the text. Nothing special there. That's the default font for the site. We could have just dressed it up a little bit using the heading font and making it a little bit bigger, and that's great. We can call it a day. However, we spent the time with it to play with the layout, play with some color variation, and then exported that as SVG and used animation to draw even more attention to it. And this really helped us, call out the important words and things that we wanted to draw attention to. Looking at the code really quick, this is all just GreenSock. Typically when you're doing SVG animation, GreenSock, or GSAP as it's known, is just super great for that. It nullifies a lot of the cross-browser issues you get when animating SVG. And then I've got them all just looped together here in a timeline. And then one of the other sections on the site had a small graphic that just helped illustrate L's relationship to our clients and how we help augment them and help them out. As a stationary graphic, it was well designed and increased clarity, but adding a simple animation to it just reinforces that core idea of, you know, working together, turning together. And again, this is just an SVG that was exported from Jack's design, and then I pulled that into the page and threw a GSAP timeline on it and got, tied it in with a CSS animation for the little dots moving there, and made a nice fun little interaction, or a nice fun animation. Secondly, reward users for interacting. Make sure that elements on the page respond to their input, whether that's mouse moves or scrolling, clicks, device tilting, the user typing. Any of that can really engage the user in using the site. Hover states are a great way to encourage the user to interact. Typically, you'll just do a text or background color to indicate that they're hovering on something. But for this microsite, we wanted to make that a little more involved. So for the main navigation on the site up here, I did a sweet little glitch effect. And this is all pretty much done with just CSS. I do have a library I'm working on called Splitting that separates the text into inline block elements and then allows you to animate them individually. So on the hover state, I've just got some CSS animations happening there to kind of make them bounce around randomly. And then I'm using CSS variables to change the delay for each element to give it a little bit more of a randomized look rather than them all moving in coordination. The kind of line effect happening over them is just a pseudo element on the words that's just stretching and scaling and moving around randomly in the same kind of fashion. And then a trick I often do with animation delay, if you make it negative delay, it's going to start in the middle of the animation. So you can, rather than a positive delay, which would cause things to lag into place, a negative delay causes them to start already in the middle of the animation. So that's a good way to offset things. We also wanted the user's first impression of the site to let them know this experience was going to be different. The design called for some letters to be dangling from a rope, so I took a few pieces from this pen by Gerard, where it's got just a simple physics engine with most of the pieces I already need. The code was relatively succinct and mostly easy to read. And so I managed to adapt that into a full kind of rope rendering text interaction here. So as the user moves their mouse around, it gives a nice interaction. It changed a little bit from the CodePen version to the live site, where you get a little more drag effect when you're clicking. And then I carried over some of that same code to tie into the Pixie tentacle renderers, so that they give some of that bounciness too, just like the ropes. And I don't understand all of the math here, but it works, so I went with it. Third, use familiar trends with a unique twist. All of the elements on your site, you want to behave the way that the user expects, but you can accomplish that behavior in a lot of different ways. don't just settle for a pre-built animation or use the exact same effect as another site. Use the animation as an opportunity to distinguish your website and your brand, to help build that up. We knew we had a couple of different modals in the site, the video pop-up, and then some photo pop-ups. So with the video modal, here's what I built there. Did kind of a split pane approach for the overlay, and then I utilized some kind of flipping techniques. Flipping is a way that you can transition an item from one state to another, basically changing the size or the position. You record that initial position, you change the element, find the last position, then you invert it, and then you play that back. There's a lot of good resources out there on that to study, but that's how I get that kind of expanding effect for the video. And then this was all built in Vue, so I was utilizing Vue's transition element, and then using GSAP to actually trigger those animations when the transition happens. And then for the photos on the page down here, I wanted to utilize that same kind of glitch effect from the navigation, but doing it actually on the image and getting that image to split and move around. So this is actually all CSS right here. There's no JavaScript happening. It's just triggering on the hover state. The HTML looks a little crazy, but when you're doing CSS only stuff, it can get a little unwieldy. But the basic idea here is using CSS variables to kind of position all of the rows of the image. If you'll notice, it's just vertical slices of the image, 5 different vertical slices here, and then the index of each slice helps position it, and then some additional randomness happening, and the background image here cascades onto all of those elements with background inherit. So all of those slices inherit this image as their background, and then with those CSS variables, we get them positioned in the right place. And then we're just using a similar kind of animation from the navigation where it bounces around to just randomize the animation there. And so, reviewing back over it, fight against boring. The web is an exciting place, and it's so full of potential. Don't take the easy route. Make sure you reward your users for interacting with elements, and use familiar trends with unique twists. Every piece of a website is an opportunity to reinforce your central message and to prop up your brand. So, utilize them. And that's all I've got on that. You can find the Get Uncomfortable microsite there at uncomfortable.lcreative.com. And then I've got a CodePen collection of all of these pins from the talk available there. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them and go back and cover anything that I may have just breezed over. Thank you. All right. Well, cool. Well, I'll end the live stream here. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll continue CodePen Houston here.